The member has 12 minutes for his presentation. The member for Trinity-Spadina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to all the respected guests who are joining us in the gallery today. Mr. Ganson Sugumar, Mr. Robert Fan, Mr. Lenny Lombardi, Ms. Teresa Lombardi, Ms. Norma Caprio, Mr. Fu Chuan, I see there, and Mr. Farouk Khan. Mr. Wei Chen-Yi will be joining us shortly. I would like to thank you all for being here today with us, and thank you for your support over the years. Mr. Speaker, I'm extremely honored to have this opportunity to represent constituents of the great riding of Trinity-Spadina, a riding which I believe most members would agree is one of the most culturally diverse riding in Canada, citing great attractions such as Little Italy, Little Portugal, Chinatown, Kensington Market, Korean Town, just to name a few. I'm humbled to present this important private member's motion to this House and in the presence of my dear friends from diverse community. This motion is for Ontario to officially recognize June 27th of each year as Canadian Multiculturalism Day. I'm immensely proud to stand here today to present this motion and pay tribute to those who worked so hard before me. Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin with a quote from the former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, a man who ushered in a new era of Canadian history, a man who led this country on a new exciting path, a man who changed the course of this nation forever. A policy of multiculturalism within a bilingual framework commends itself to the government as the most suitable means of assuring the cultural freedom of Canadians. Such a policy should help break down discriminatory attitudes and cultural jealousy. National unity, if it is to mean anything in the deeply personal sense, must be found on the confidence in its own individual identity. Out of this can grow respect for that of others and a willingness to share ideas, attitudes, and assumptions. A vigorous policy of multiculturalism will help create its initial confidence. It can form the base of a society which is based on a fair play for all. The government will support and encourage to various culture and ethnic groups that gives structure and vitality to our society. We will be encouraged to share their culture, their expression, and values with other Canadians, and so contribute to a richer life for us all. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, October 8, 1971. This passage to me illustrates who we are as a nation, as a province, and as Canadians. The continued support and encouragement of all cultural and ethnic groups in Ontario is important to build Ontario up. Through this motion, we as a province set an example and demonstrate that we embrace our cultural diversity, that we hold multiculturalism at the very base of our ideology as a province, and that we will continue to recognize and respect the countless contribution that a multicultural community has brought to Ontario. For example, in this very gallery today is a man who started his successful business enterprise as a newcomer to this province, Mr. Ganson Sugumar, a long-time and respected friend of mine. He came here from Sri Lanka and started business, and now it is an enterprise that employs hundreds in Ontario, provides immensely to our economy, and is a large contributor to local communities through charity and community events. That's right. Mr. Sugumar was recently awarded with the distinction of Entrepreneur of the Year on behalf of the Canadian Sri Lanka Business Council. In the same year, he also received Her Majesty's Diamond Jubilee Medal from His Excellency, the Governor-General of Canada, for his outstanding and significant contribution to Canada. Mr. Sugumar's commitment and dedication to volunteerism has helped thousands of Ontarians. volunteer to raise funds for hospital for sick kids in Stouffville Hospital, fundraising to Birth Center at Centenary Hospital, fundraising for MRI machine for Scarborough Hospital. Mr. Sugumar, thank you for your hard work. This province is a better place because of it. Another person I would like to recognize is the late Johnny Lombardi, a pioneer of multicultural media in Ontario. The son of Italian immigrants, Mr. Lombardi was born in Little Italy of Toronto. Mr. Lombardi was a promoter of concerts and sporting events, a champion of multiculturalism before it was ever implemented as a government policy. He founded a multicultural radio station, Chain, in 1966, and Chain FM in 1967, which now serves over 30 ethnic communities. By 1968, Chain was broadcasting in 32 languages at 60 hours per week. His son Lenny and daughter Teresa remains dedicated to continue this legacy of their fathers. Lenny is the president and CEO of Chain Radio and TV International, and Teresa is the vice president and general manager. Mr. Lombardi is an exceptional man who supported his community and helped take multiculturalism to where it is today. The Premier often reminds us that our competitive advantage is our people. Multiculturalism has attracted the best and brightest minds to our province. This has provided us great economic potentials. The recent trade mission led by Minister Chan is a good testimony of that. And he is joining us here in this house this afternoon. The reality is that we as a province welcome roughly 50% of all newcomers to Canada, which is approximately 100,000 a year. These newcomers come to Ontario year after year because we're an exceptional diverse part of the country. We're culturally tolerant, religiously tolerant, and do not discriminate against based on who they are and where they're from. And Mr. Speaker, the tolerance and naturally accepting nature of Ontarians is a large part of why I'm so proud to be a member of this legislature, to stand here in this House today presenting this motion. By officially recognizing Canadian Multiculturalism Day, we are recognizing and celebrating the achievements and the contribution of every ethnic community in this province. Just this morning, I was at an announcement for the launch of the 2015 Toronto Dragon Boat Race, an event that attracts thousands, hundreds of thousands of visitors and tourists to the greater Toronto area. This fantastic event celebrates ancient Chinese culture and educates visitors about Chinese heritage and history. Mr. Speaker, there are many more events that are happening in Trinity-Spadina. Caravana, Korean Deno Festival, Pride Parade, Chinatown Festival, Taste of Little Italy, Portugal Day Parade, just to name a few. And these are just sample of the amazing community events held every year across Ontario by cultural associations and ethnic communities. Mr. Speaker, a former member of this House, the Honorable Jerry Phillips, the former member of this House, the Honorable Jerry Phillips, has an analogy he uses quite often. I had the pleasure of working with him, and if my memory serves me well, I would like to share that analogy with this House. Jerry sees Canada as a large flower garden. In the beginning, there was only one flower, and that is our Aboriginal community. As the time goes by, we have more flowers in this garden. Now the garden is beautiful and full of color. Sometimes there will be weeds, such as racism and prejudice, and every one of us has the responsibility of taking those out. Mr. Speaker, when I first came to Ontario, I noticed the Chinese community here embraces many cultural traditions that have been long lost in the modern urban center like Shanghai. That speaks to the respect and degree of acceptance that are embedded in our social norm. Multiculturalism is the foundation of that socialism. And I look forward to the support of all members of this House to the passage of this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.